Feline, revenge, crazy, entitled Neighbor tries to bleach my sister's cat. Cat gets revenge. I count this as a nuclear revenge story. But not in the traditional sense. This happened many years ago. My older sister had this awful, bitchy neighbor who had a serious hard-on for Sis's seal point Siamese cat. I'll call neighbor Crazy Neighbor, for Crazy Neighbor, sister is Sis, me is self-explanatory. Crazy Neighbor was a black-haired, plump, 40-something divorcee who annoyed everyone in the neighborhood. She had zero understanding of boundaries and liked to come over to people's homes, barge in and look, snoop, around, opening drawers and cabinets and touching their stuff. Once she even went into someone's fridge and grabbed herself a ginger ale, then got mad when the homeowner took it back. If you left your door, front or back, unlocked for more than 10 minutes, chances were she'd just come right in. She stole yard decorations from other people's yards and had been caught on more than one occasion pocketing something she'd snagged off a mantel or table of the house she'd invaded, and she would always throw a tantrum when she got busted. Cops had been called on her many times, but she was good at being pathetic, so most people didn't press charges. Unfortunately, this made her bolder. Basically, she was the entitled bitch of the neighborhood. Sis was, unfortunately, one of her favorite victims. She'd come over, without calling, barge her way in and ask, demand, to see Sis's cat, telling Sis how beautiful he was and how much she wanted a cat just like him. Sis, being rather non-confrontational, would let her see the cat, who didn't like the woman, then make her leave. Crazy Neighbor never wanted to leave and had to basically be pushed out the door. Oh, and she despised me because I wouldn't let her in when I answered the door. Nor would I tolerate her BS in any way, if she got past my sister. Crazy Neighbor was so obsessed with the cat and offered to buy him, many times. But Sis loved that cat. He'd been the runt of the litter and rejected by his mom. My sister had taken him and bottle-fed him, mothered him and saved his life. He wasn't a pet, he was her child. So Sis of course always said no. This royally pissed off Crazy Neighbor. One day the cat got out. He wasn't an outdoor cat, so Sis and I immediately started looking for him. We were checking the bushes and behind the flower pots in her backyard, when we heard a very distinctive yowl, one of pure rage, followed by a very human shriek of pain. Coming from Crazy Neighbor's house. Suddenly, the doggy door on Crazy Neighbor's back door slams open and out runs my sister's cat. His tail and one rear paw covered in what smelled like hair bleach. I'm allergic to bleach and immediately recognized smell as he passed me, dashing past us and into Sis's house. Next thing you know, Crazy Neighbor's back door slams open and out she comes, cursing up a blue streak. Ragged claw marks adorned her left cheek and one of her hands had a deep bite wound that had completely saturated one of the gloves, the kind one gets with any hair coloring kit, she was wearing and running down her hand and arm. Turned out when the cat had gotten out, Crazy Neighbor had grabbed him, took him inside, then tried to use hair bleach to bleach the brown out of his tail and paws, in order to change his appearance so she could keep him. Unfortunately for her, she didn't know shit about Siamese cats and just how violent they can be. They were, originally, temple guardians for a reason lol. The moment Crazy Neighbor put that bleach on that cat's tail, he went absolutely berserk, letting out that yowl of rage we'd heard, clawing up Crazy Neighbor's face and sinking his fangs deep into her hand. She pushed herself between the bushes, the ones that look like tall, green paintbrush heads, Sis used to separate the property line and began yelling. No, not yelling. Shrieking. She shrieked that Sis's cat had wandered into her kitchen, while she was cooking and when she tried to pick him up, he attacked her for no reason. Clearly this was total BS. Crazy Neighbor then proceeded to call Sis the N-word several times, she's half black, and me effing half-breed wetback slut, I'm half Hispanic. We have different dads. She screamed that my sis was stupid for keeping such a dangerous animal and that my sis would be paying all her medical bills. She then got right in my sister's face, pushed my sister hard in the chest, with her uninjured hand, saying she was calling animal control and intended to have that thing put down. Crazy Neighbor opened her mouth to say, shriek, some more, but my sis, after hearing that last statement and without one word or warning, hauled off and decked her. She landed on her butt in the grass, now clutching her left eye. Sis then loudly suggested crazy neighbor go screw herself with a hot curling iron, then ran inside to find her poor cat, while I called the cops. The whole thing from start to end lasted only about 5 minutes. Sis found him hiding in the laundry room and quickly cleaned him off in the sink. Meanwhile, crazy neighbor is still on her ass in our backyard, howling like a banshee, until the cops arrived. I told them what happened and they later talked to my sister, after she tended to her cat, who gave them the same story I did, even admitting to hitting crazy neighbor. In self-defense of course. It didn't hurt her case that crazy neighbor had left a bloody handprint on my sister's shirt when she'd shoved her. Crazy neighbor, of course, told them something entirely different. Her story was that she was about to bleach her hair when my sister's cat came in and attacked her. She also said both Sis and I attacked her too. I apparently kicked her in the stomach after Sis punched her, but the cops found no evidence of bruising, and the scratches on her face kind of masked her swelling eye. I also think cops turned a blind eye, pun intended, to it, considering the circumstances. But, since there was a clear blood trail leading into crazy neighbor's open back door, cops felt they had probable cause to go in. I think if crazy neighbor had been paying more attention, she'd have refused them entry. The blood trail led to a sink in the first floor bathroom. Blood, cat fur, a bleach applicator and the box it came in were in the sink and on the floor. The cat's collar was in the garbage. Crazy neighbor kept trying to play the victim, but the cops didn't buy it. She got arrested and my sister pressed charges for theft and assault. Crazy neighbor also got nabbed for possession of stolen goods. Cops found a bunch of DVD players and CD players, still in their boxes, sitting on her coffee table and in the spare room next to her bathroom, and she had a bunch of prescription drug bottles with other people's names on her kitchen counter. Turned out she'd also been stealing neighbors' painkillers when she'd visited them. And, since she was a renter, the property owner gave her the boot for breach of contract. She went to jail and had to pay for the cat's vet bill. He was okay, but a bit traumatized and had a yellow patch on his butt, paw and tail for several months. Crazy neighbor's hand got infected from the cat bite and it turned out it had also caused tendon and nerve damage as well. Moral of the story, stay out of people's houses. And have the common sense not to mess with a cat named Lucifer. Edit, I'd like to thank the people who gave me the gold, silver and platinum. It means a great deal to me that you liked and enjoyed this. Grandpa gave up what time he had left for revenge on my behalf. TLDR at the end, this is a throwaway account for obvious reasons. This story has a few references to some triggering things, just FYI. Now I've been debating over posting this or not, but have finally decided I will. This is my grandpa's nuclear revenge on my behalf. So I guess let's begin. It's going to be long, sorry. I grew up dealing with a lot of mental health issues, as my mother is a drug addict and my father liked to ignore my existence as I'm the result of a one-night stand while he was married. So needless to say, his wife hated me and their children treated me horribly as well. The only good people I had in my life was my grandma and grandpa on my father's side. I loved them and spent a lot of time at my grandpa's business. I'll explain that a little later. Now at 14 everything went further downhill. I won't go into details, but my mother almost passed away and I met a man, let's name him Goat. He looked like one. Long story short, Goat was 25 at the beginning and emotionally, physically and sexually abused me. While I was under the percent that I loved him and it was okay. He pushed me away from my grandparents and isolated me for 2 years until a friend helped me get out of it. During this next year, Goat stalked me, threatened me and had me absolutely terrified. I was afraid of going to the police as I didn't want to bring harsh light to my grandpa's business, and because I was afraid, I was staying at my friend's house for a while during this time, as my panic attacks and what I now know is PTSD was horrible and I hated to be alone. During this time my grandmother passed away, one of the only lights in my life left. So I became worse. I began drinking and going to parties and trying to forget my life. Right before my 18th birthday, Goat made a real-life appearance again. On my way back from a big party he jumped me, beat me black and blue and almost killed me. I was found and taken to hospital where they began treating me, and as I was underage they asked me to call an adult in my life that they could talk to. I tried to call my father but he didn't pick up. Knowing my mother wasn't going to help, I had to call my grandfather. He was at the hospital in lightning speed, and for the first time in my life I watched this man that had built his own empire really break down. Even at my grandma's funeral he didn't cry. I spent 2 months in hospital, with police questioning me and my grandpa by my side every day. During this time he met my friend who helped me out of it all at the beginning and became very close to him. My grandfather helped me get on my feet for a whole year, until one day he had a large family gathering and socialized the whole time, taking me with him. That night I will never forget. We went to get ice cream and then he just hugged me for a very long time, holding me tight and reassuring me everything would be okay. The next day my grandpa exacted his revenge. Now my grandpa was the owner of a well-off law firm that also had private detectives in a smaller office in his building. He apparently tracked down Goat and went about his revenge. My grandpa shot Goat 3 times in the stomach and once in the chest. Goat passed away in the hospital later that day while my grandpa was taken in and soon put in jail for manslaughter, which he pleaded guilty to. I never got the chance to visit my grandpa in jail as he passed away soon after in jail from complications. 1 week after my grandpa's death I got a call from his solicitor, and he asked me to go in. I was met with a lengthy letter from my grandpa, which was nothing but loving and showed that he had found out he had terminal lung cancer and wouldn't live much longer. But he couldn't happily leave me alone in this world without Goat being gone too. My grandpa left almost everything to me. At 20 I would inherit the law firm and could do as I pleased with it, and I inherited 95% of his savings, his house he lived in with grandma, and his other assets. In case anyone's interested, I turned 21 last week. I'm currently working at the law firm. My grandpa's secretary, now the CEO, has taken over the important things in the building and makes most of the decisions. I spent half the money I was given in locked saving funds for all of the younger family members to go to college when it's time. I cut all contact off with my father, who tried to steal money from me during the death arrangements of grandpa. My friend mentioned earlier in the story is now my fiancé and we are getting married next summer. I'm still suffering from PTSD and depression, but it's getting better every day. I'm in therapy for my PTSD treatment. I got a tattoo for my grandpa and grandma on my back of 2 lions protecting a cub. I also opened up a safe house for anyone going through abuse of any kind. No matter the race, gender or age, I'm trying to help anyone I can in that situation. Besides for what I've put away for later in life, I'm also thinking of opening up the bakery I always wanted and employing the people that need the job and help the most, but I'm unsure at the moment about that. My grandpa and grandma was a godsend, and to this day I miss them greatly, but I know I couldn't have changed the stubborn old man's mind even if I tried. I'm sorry this is long. I tried to make it shorter. TLDR. My grandfather killed my abuser and left everything the law didn't take to me. Edit, I wrote a part wrong, whoops. My mother didn't die, she almost did. Edit part 2. Thank you so much for the gold, kind stranger. Also thank you to all these comments. It's so uplifting and entertaining to hear people talk so highly of my grandpa. Thank you everyone for being so wholesome and amazing.